It's midnight in the heart of an Appalachian winter, the wind snapping against your house like ghostly fingers tapping at the glass. You hear it again, footsteps right outside your door, but there's snow on the ground, and when you dare to peek, there's nothing, only the outline of a woman's shape, pressed into the cold whiteness and vanishing towards the woods. You start to wonder what might force the dead to claw their way back among the living. And what if you stood face to face with a spirit so desperate for justice, she forced a courtroom to listen? Tonight on Horror Whisper, gather close, because you're about to hear the most unsettling true ghost story America has ever known, the night the dead took the stand. This is the case of the Greenbrier Ghost. By the way, you're watching Horror Whisper, the only place you'll find true tales more chilling than your darkest nightmares. If you like the hair-raising kind of history that keeps you up at night, go ahead and hit subscribe now. Trust me, you aren't going to want to walk alone in the dark after this one. There's an old town in West Virginia, folded deep in the Allegheny Mountains, called Greenbrier. It looks peaceful. Old farmhouses, drifting mist, nothing but the sound of creek water tumbling over rocks in the woods at night. But if you stop any local, sit with them in the flicker of a porch lantern, eventually someone will whisper about Zona Heaster Shue, the girl who died, the woman who came back. It all starts in January 1897, back when lamps burned whale oil and news traveled by word of mouth faster than any telegraph line. Zona, barely 23 years old, is found dead in her small, drafty parlor by a neighbor's son. What struck him first was how strangely her body was placed, head tilted too far back, arms at her sides, face twisted in a look of shock that didn't seem peaceful at all. The local doctor was called, but by the time he trudged up the snowy path to the house, Zona's husband, Erasmus Shue, who folks called Trout, had already cleaned and dressed her, and the way he did it still gives people the shivers. Trout insisted on putting a high-necked stiff collar around Zona's throat, tying a heavy veil under her chin, and sobbing so violently nobody dared pry her away from his arms. All through the wake, he wouldn't let anyone touch Zona's head. People noticed, but back then, who wanted to wake a fresh grief with hard questions? The official verdict was everlasting faint, an old word for heart failure, or maybe pregnancy gone wrong. Some whispered, others buried it. Zona was laid to rest in the Softs Ridge Cemetery, earth-cold and unyielding in the January wind. The story should have ended there. But sometimes, a mother's love is wild enough to reach past the grave. Zona's mother, Mary Jane Heaster, never believed her daughter died by accident. Every sleepless night, Mary Jane begged for a sign, for any proof her suspicions weren't just the howling of heartbreak. And some nights, when the candlelight flickered blue, Mary Jane would claim Zona answered. What happened next is where fact and folklore overlap, where the shadow of truth grows teeth. One night, Mary Jane woke to a cold weight pressing down on her bed. The room filled with a chill so deep, her breath turned to smoke in the air. That's when she saw Zona standing at the foot of the mattress, more real than any dream. Zona's skin glowed with a ghostly light, and her voice sounded, if you believe the old courthouse records, like leaves being swept across stone. She said, "Mama, listen, he killed me. Trout broke my neck." And to make sure the message stuck, Zona's spirit didn't just speak. She showed her mother exactly how her head flopped backwards, how her neck made an unnatural twist before she faded away. 4 nights in a row, the apparition repeated the story. The bruises, the snapping sound, the pain. When Mary Jane woke the final time, she found one side of the mattress pressed impossibly low, as if someone had really been sitting there, weighted down by everything they hadn't said in life. At this point, you have to ask yourself, what would you do if the dead came calling? If your child told you her killer still walked free, would you fight for the truth, no matter how impossible it sounded? Mary Jane did. Driven by terror and love, she marched to the county prosecutor's office and demanded action. At first, the officials laughed her off. Ghost stories weren't worth the ink to write them down. But as Mary Jane rattled off every little detail, details she couldn't have known unless she'd seen a body up close when no one let her near it, something began to gnaw at the lawman's mind. What if she was telling the truth? What if Zona's spirit really was reaching across the world of the living for justice? Here's where the story tips from chilling to disturbing. Prosecutor John Alfred Preston listened, and then listened again. He started digging, quietly at first. Whispers around Greenbrier told him Trout Shue's first wife died mysteriously too, and his second wife left, filling the air with nothing but her silence. Folks remembered that Trout bragged he'd always have 7 wives. The more Preston found, the more the case stank to high heaven. He convinced the authorities to dig up Zona's grave. Imagine that moment. Dozens of people gathered at the frozen graveyard under a gunmetal gray February sky. Zona's body was unearthed. The doctor who'd attended her death, Dr. George Knapp, joined in the second examination. This time, Trout wasn't allowed near. As soon as they peeled away the high collar, the truth stood naked and shivering in the cold. Zona's neck was broken, her windpipe crushed, finger marks stained deep in the faded flesh. The break between her first and second vertebrae was clear as day. She hadn't died of fainting. This was murder, all right. A crime that might have slipped by if not for the persistence of a mother's belief, and the testimony, if you can call it that, of a dead girl. Trout Shue was arrested, brought before the Greenbrier court to face a jury, a town, and the ghost stories that sizzled out of every front porch and tavern for miles. Picture the courthouse, creaking with tension, neighbors crammed on benches, breathing low as secrets get passed, like bottle whiskey. Trout wore his best suit, but nothing about a killer can hide too long. When he took the stand, he barely looked at anyone, his eyes always fixed on the floor, as if he was scared to glance at the back row, where Mary Jane Heaster sat, face pale and hands knotted, certain she wasn't alone in her grief. The prosecution tore into Trout's past, laid out his lies for all to see. They called witness after witness, people who'd heard him threaten to fix Zona if she didn't behave, people who helped dress her corpse, all remembering that unnatural position of her head, the way Trout wept when they came too close. But the heart of the trial, what still glimmers with frost in West Virginia legend, is the moment Mary Jane took the stand. Early on, Trout's own lawyer made a mistake that sealed his fate. He called Mary Jane as a witness, thinking to mock her ghost story, to prove to the jury she was unhinged. Instead, Mary Jane sat upright, eyes shining, and told the court, "My daughter came back. She told me he broke her neck. She showed me how." She described her daughter's visits in detail so convincing. The bruises, the feeling of her presence, the cold that wrapped her body, that the entire room went dead silent. Now every cold-minded official might have told you this wasn't evidence. They even tried to keep the ghost's story out of the record. But here's the thing about juries. You can't tell them what to believe when shadows creep across a story. The jury was small-town folk, many of them churchgoers with their own stories about the unexplainable. In the end, nobody could quite shake Mary Jane's conviction, or the sick feeling that something far beyond their world was at work. Trout's alibi unraveled, and the real wounds on Zona's neck might as well have been signed from the grave. Trout Shue was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He died a few years later, alone, no one to mourn him, no one to whisper prayers over his grave. That's the kind of cold justice that seeps deeper than prison bars. The bones of the trial are all there in black and white. Depositions, cross-examinations, the exhumed body. But above the legal records, above the law's logic, the only thing anyone remembers is the ghost. And here's where it gets darker. Because Greenbrier didn't move on after Zona's revenge. People say this during the days of the trial, as Trout rotted behind bars. The township was plagued by unexplainable things. Lights swaying in empty hills, horses refusing to walk the path near Soft's Ridge Cemetery, children waking in the night, screaming about the lady in white they saw between the trees. Some even claimed they'd find flowers, freshly picked, scattered across Zona's grave, left by a pale shape, only glimpsed out of the corner of your eye, vanishing with the dawn. When the news spread across West Virginia, young lovers would dare each other to sneak out under the full moon, to walk the cemetery path and listen for Zona's voice in the whipping wind. Most came back with nothing but a story to scare the next fool. But a few swore they felt watched, that the air turned suddenly heavy, as if something invisible had laid a hand on their shoulder and whispered, "Justice never sleeps." You see, the Greenbrier Ghost isn't just a courtroom curiosity. It's a riddle lurking in the bones of American law. This still stands as the one and only time a ghost's testimony, filtered through the raw nerves of a grieving mother, contributed to convicting a killer. Think about that. In all our history, all the logic and courts and lawmen, nobody before or since has seen a verdict twist under the pressure of the supernatural quite like this. The story has sunk roots into the soil, twisting around every legend and kitchen table tale Greenbrier County holds close. It makes you wonder, how deep does grief dig when the world denies you justice? How far would you walk in the cold to bring someone back, if it meant the truth would finally stare its killer in the eye? Did Mary Jane really call her daughter from across the veil? Or did her need for clarity conjure something darker? Sometimes, want and willpower bend reality, until the walls thin and whatever's waiting on the other side presses through. Whether the ghost was real, or a mother's mind sharpened to a blade by loss, one fact lingers. Zona Heaster Shue's story unsettled a town, unmasked a murderer, and left a crack in the wall between life and death that no judge could ever patch. It's easy to brush off ghosts as simple tales, shadows cast by old fears, until you pick at the details, until you stare at the shiver in Mary Jane's voice on the witness stand, the candle flickering, the court filled with the breathless hush of people who desperately want order in a world ruled by chaos. And maybe, just maybe, The Greenbrier Ghost's restless spirit is still out there, watching anyone who thinks justice ends just because someone's buried under the soil. So next time you find yourself walking a lonely road after midnight, pay attention to the weight in the air, the sudden frost crawling up your back, the sense that someone is standing just out of sight. Maybe it's just your nerves, or maybe it's someone who can't stop fighting for the truth. The kind of truth that can rattle the walls of a court and echo on long after the living forget. Now I want to know, have you ever had a dream so vivid that it felt like more, like a message reaching out from someone who's gone? Did you ever wake up and feel, deep in your bones, that a ghost needed to be heard? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll be reading every chilling confession, and if you know someone who loves a good ghost story or needs a little scare before bed, go ahead and share this video with them. Give them a reason to keep their light on tonight. Thank you for watching Horror Whisper, where the past always has one last secret to tell. Sleep tight. Your story might be next.